Sleuthhounds, have you ever considered creating your own podcast? Have you been inspired by listening to some of your favorites and thought, I'd love to try this out on my own? Whether it's a true crime podcast like ours, a motivational podcast, or maybe one filled with tips and strategies for those interested in the same activities you are. When Maggie and I first decided to start our podcast, we knew absolutely nothing about what podcasting would entail. But when we found the platform Buzzsprout was one for which we didn't really need any special equipment, just a computer microphone, some quiet space, and each other, we knew this was the way to go. It is intuitive to use, fun to play around with, and so helpful in getting analytical data about our number of downloads to track trends and from where our listeners hail. Best yet, Buzzsprout is affordable, even by our teacher salary standards. Buzzsprout will get your podcast listed on every major podcasting platform. So, what are you waiting for? Fulfill that dream of yours and start today. If you use our Coffee and Cases referral code, 709643, which will be linked on Facebook and in our show notes, not only will you help support our show, but you will receive a $20 Amazon gift card after your second month on a paid plan. It's that easy. Podcasting isn't hard when you have the right partners. Join over 100,000 podcasters already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. Now it's time for the world to hear what you have to say. This is the season of scares. The time of year when children likely look forward to the treats and adults to the tricks. Whether we indulge our deepest fears through horror films or through haunted houses, Americans spent a whopping $178 million last year to be scared out of our wits in the Halloween season. There's something in horror that appeals to all of us, whether we want to admit it or not. It's why you listen to this podcast. It's why when we see a motor vehicle accident on the side of the road, we crane our necks to get a good look, even if, and especially when, we see an ambulance. It's the attraction of repulsion. In one and the same instant, we want to see, but we also know that if we do see something, it might scar us. The same principle applies when you peek through your fingers during a particularly scary scene in a film. Stephen King, arguably the king of horror, in an essay entitled Why We Crave Horror Movies, argued that we enjoy horror because deep down, those violent, vengeful emotions at the root of most horror are still within us, just covered up with a civilized facade, by the continual recognition that those emotions must be suppressed, that good people don't act on those impulses. But that doesn't negate the fact that they're still there. And horror movies allow us to recognize those emotions without acting on them ourselves. He argues the following, quote, "The mythic horror movie, like the sick joke, has a dirty job to do. It deliberately appeals to all that is worst in us. It is morbidity unchained, our most base instincts let free, our nastiest fantasies realized, and it all happens, fittingly enough, in the dark." He continued with his view of the most dark and gory films as, quote, "lifting a trap door in the civilized forebrain and throwing a basket of raw meat to the hungry alligators swimming around in that subterranean river beneath. Why bother? Because it keeps them from getting out, man. It keeps them down there and me up here." It was Lennon and McCartney who said that all you need is love, and I would agree with that, as long as you keep the gators fed. End quote. The recurring thing I see, sleuthhounds, is that we don't mind so much the acknowledging of darkness, violence, and horror and those hungry alligators deep in our minds, so long as they stay buried. But what happens when evil doesn't stay buried? What happens when it looks you right in the eye? Or when it speaks to you? Would you listen and respond? Or would you run? And what if that presence were entrapped in the very place where you should find comfort and safety? Your home. These are the very questions the Broaddus family had to face when in June 2014, they thought they had just purchased their forever home at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey. This is the story of the Watcher. Welcome to Coffee and Cases, where we like our coffee hot and our cases cold. My name is Allison Williams.
And my name is Maggie Dameron. We will be telling stories each week in the hopes that someone out there with any information concerning the cases will take those tips to law enforcement, so justice and closure can be brought to these families. With each case, we encourage you to continue in the conversation on our Facebook page, Coffee and Cases Podcast, because, as we all know, conversation helps to keep the missing person in the public consciousness, helping to keep their memories alive. So sit back, sip your coffee, and listen to what's brewing this week.
Guys, we are so close we can taste it. Allison and I are up to 137 ratings on Apple Podcasts. That means we're only 13 ratings away from a bonus episode, and 13 ratings away from you not having to hear us beg one more time to take a moment to rate the show. So for those of you that are new to the podcast, quite some time ago, Allison and I set a very lofty goal of 150 ratings on Apple Podcasts. We knew it was going to take a while, it wasn't going to be easy, but we also had faith in our listeners to get us there. And we're finally in the home stretch. In this Halloween season, please treat us by sharing our podcast with at least 2 people. And if you haven't taken a second to rate the show, please do so. If you have a few seconds longer, also leave us a few words to tell us what you liked most about the podcast. When we get to that 150 ratings, we'll announce that we're going to do another bonus episode. So just make sure that you follow us on social media, Coffee and Cases Podcast on Facebook, or at Coffee Cases Podcast on Instagram. Or as always, listen in each week to know when that bonus episode will air. Okay, Allison, I think I might be ready for today's show.
Maybe. Okay, before we start our show today, Maggie, I want you to picture your dream home. If money is no object, your forever home, what would it look like?
Okay. I am picturing like a Snow White cottage, except bigger, like in the woods near a lake.
Okay. So would you have like lots of rooms?
Yeah, lots of rooms, lots of land, or lots of room on the beach.
But lots of room either way.
Yeah, because I gotta spread out and get away from like my 7,000 animals every once in a while.
Oh, true. They could each have a room.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you have a library in it?
Yeah, 100% for sure. Like I'm slowly turning the like extra bedroom that we have in our house into like a library.
Love that. How about closet space?
Yeah, that's a must because I don't like clutter, and so I'd want to have places where I can like hide things, and like a big laundry room where I can like put all my dirty clothes if I need to, and shut the door when people come over so that they don't know how messy I can be.
Same. This is why I could never do like an open floor plan, because then everybody sees everything. I need like a room where I can put all of my crap in and close the door.
Yes, we looked at a couple of open concept places, but I liked the house we got because if somebody's just like dropping something off at my front door, you can't see like my whole house. You just see like my little entryway, and I like that because my kitchen could be a mess and they wouldn't know.
Now, do you like older homes too? Like those big opulent houses that are, historic?
Yeah, I love those. Like when we're driving through like downtown, I love all of like the old houses, like the Victorian type homes.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so you like the Victorian homes, lots of rooms, a library, lots of closets, things kind of closed off for privacy, somewhere remote with plenty of land.
Yeah, I need to win the lottery.
Well, I'm going to point something out that I never really thought about until I was doing this episode.
Oh, God.
I am asking these specific questions for a particular purpose. Because, well, it's Halloween season. So I started thinking, because your dream home is exactly what mine is as well. And then I realized how many of those same attributes that you, me, so many of us admire and long for in a dream home are the same attributes that can turn horrific, that become terrifying in a haunted house.
Yeah, Anthony is like really weird about, because we looked at like a couple really old houses that needed, like we basically would have had to redo the inside. And he was like, I can't live here. There's probably ghosts here.
Well, listen, maybe Anthony's right, because I read an article that was called A Psychologist Explains Why Haunted Houses Terrify Us. The guy's name was Frank T. McAndrew. And he outlined what triggers that subconscious dread, like in a haunted house. And it is that the house is isolated because it means it's removed from society and safety that you can find in close neighbors. With all the rooms in the closet. So yes, there are plenty of places for you to hide, but there's also now plenty of places for some danger to be hidden.
Oh, okay. Way to crush my dreams.
Right. And the biggest thing, though, is that these houses lack, and I'd never heard this term before until I read this in that McAndrew article, something that environmental scientists called legibility. And I started thinking about, well, legible handwriting means I could read it easily. It's easily understood. And the same kind of applies to a home. A home with legibility means the floor plan is in an organized pattern. So there's like a natural flow to the home so that it would be hard to get lost in it. Like it's clear, more like an open floor plan. But older, opulent homes with plenty of rooms lack that. Like it's easy to get turned around, which means it's easy to get trapped.
What is that horror movie? It's a Stephen King, I'm pretty sure, novel, but it's like based on a true story. That the house in the novel or the movie, it grows. But like in real life, they just kept like adding rooms to it because there was like some superstition that this man had, and so he kept adding rooms.
Oh, no. I know what you're thinking of. You are thinking of the Winchester house because, and that's real. The widow of, I don't know his first name, but the Winchester, the guy who created the Winchester rifle, she thought that all of the people who had been killed by these guns that her husband created, were going to come and haunt her. And so she would build like staircases that went up into the ceiling and doors
that open nowhere.
Yeah, there's like a wall behind it.
I'm pretty sure though that Stephen King kind of did a spoof off that, and there's also like a horror movie, but the house like grows or something. It's like one of Anthony's favorite horror movies, but I can't remember. But Sleuth Hounds, if y'all know what I'm talking about, let us know, because I can't remember.
But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Like, it's scary to get turned around and not know where you are.
Yeah.
And I feel like kind of basic requirement for a haunted house is the age of the home. Like it needs to be older. So basically what I'm saying is that your dream home and mine Well, now I'm worried that we are likely making poor decisions because, I mean, I don't mind talking about mysteries and dangers, but I don't want to be part of them.
Oh, no. No.
So maybe we should change our dream home.
My dream home is a 3-bedroom house in a crowded subdivision.
Floor plan. Yeah.
Open floor plan. No closet.
Lots of traffic. Yeah. No closet space.
Yeah.
Well, I bring this up because the concept of a dream home and a haunted house come to a head in our case this week. So let me tell you how. Derek and Maria Broaddus had been desperate to try to get back to the town in which Maria had grown up, Westfield, New Jersey. And I'm going to be upfront that one of the reasons this week's story struck me as so terrifying is that Westfield and the specific address where this story takes place is not even 7 miles from where I taught high school in South Plainfield when I lived in New Jersey.
Were you there when this happened?
No, I was already back in Kentucky.
I was going to say.
To know that it was that close, that's 7 miles, it's like 7 miles, not even.
Yeah.
Well, the town in our story this week, Westfield, New Jersey, is also only about 16 miles southwest of Manhattan. And it was called by the New York Times, quote, the place where small town meets urban. Because it was this small, quaint, affluent town that was surrounded by train tracks, taking anyone and everyone into the bustling mega center of New York City.
So I feel like this is another just lesson to take away from just like life. Don't live in a town that is like given some type of award about being like the country's safest town or the country's most beautiful place to live. Because that's like the Bardstown. Bardstown is like one of the most beautiful places to live or whatever it was voted. And then they had like 5 murders within like X amount of years.
Right. And this was, I forget what number it was, but it was considered one of the safest towns.
Mm-hmm.
So I know. So you're right. Spot on. And this street, the boulevard in particular, was a sought-after neighborhood street in general, and even more so for Maria, because her childhood home was only a few blocks away.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. This was like the ideal place for her. Small town, train ride away from the city, right around the corner from where she grew up, and close to grandparents. Perfect place to raise their 3 children.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
Yeah. And Derek, her husband, had worked incredibly hard to get them there. Living in and affording a house on Boulevard was no small feat. 657 Boulevard had hit the market with an astounding $1.3 million price tag.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is like not in the range for everybody.
Not for me.
Not for me either. Not even if I saved my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, Derek himself, he had not grown up in the lifestyle of the wealthy. He had wanted to provide that life, though, or the best life he could for his children. He was actually born in Maine to a working class family, but he had, according to an article in The Cut by Reeves Weideman, at age 40, which is still pretty young, worked his way up the corporate ladder to become senior vice president at a Manhattan insurance company.
Wow.
Yeah, it was that job that had allowed him to purchase his home for his growing family. As you can imagine, Maria and the kids, ages 5, 8, and 10, were ecstatic. They met some of their neighbors and chatted with them a bit when they came to look at the house. They walked around, are you ready for this? The 3,920 square foot, 6-bedroom home.
Wow, my mouth is like wide open.
I'm like 10 families could live there.
Yeah, like how do you keep a house that big clean?
You'd have to hire somebody. There's no way.
If you could afford a $1.3 million home, you could probably afford to hire someone to clean your house.
You could. And so they walked around the home. It was an old colonial home. And here's how it was described on Zillow. It was described as having, quote, period features, including high ceilings, elegant foyers, built-in window seats, fireplaces, and more. The stunning master suite boasts a custom dressing room and closet and a renovated bath, 2 porches, a covered open front porch, and an enclosed side sun porch that was 27 by 11 with stone fireplace add to the inviting appeal. An open staircase leads to the 3rd floor with sitting area, 2 bedrooms, and renovated bath with skylight. A finished playroom is located in the basement, end quote.
Okay, yeah. Just go ahead, sign the contract. This is my house.
Yeah, I'll win the lottery and I'll be able to pay for it. And this was so cute, but several of the sources that I read even noted that the first argument that the 3 children had when they visited the home wasn't which bedroom was going to belong to which one, but which fireplace Santa would likely come down.
Okay, that's first world problems right there.
I know. I think it's so true, though.
Yeah.
But this was a place where their future looked bright, right? I mean, they're thinking, this is it for us. But this was also the place where that feeling turned to fear only 3 days after closing on the home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when they bought the house, there were still, which I can't imagine spending $1.3 million and then having money left over to do renovations, but there were a few renovations that Derek and Maria wanted to do before they moved in. And I totally understand wanting to do renovations before you move in because, number one, this is an older home, right? And number 2, they say that if you don't do renovations before you move in, that you rarely end up doing them at all.
True that. I can attest to that in my last house.
Yeah, I mean, well, you just get too bogged down with everything that you need to do, or else you convince yourself that it's not that pressing, right? Like, it can wait. Yeah. We've waited this long.
Or I'm not going to move all of my furniture to change the floors in here. It's fine.
Right, I'll deal.
Yeah.
So I understand this desire to, want to go ahead and get started on those renovations right away that they had in mind. But someone or something wasn't happy with the renovations.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. After working all day with contractors, detailing what he and his wife wanted completed, Derek Broaddus went to the mailbox at 10 p.m. Remember, this is 3 days after they closed.
Okay.
To finally check the mail. Now, Maggie, you recently moved, so you know that you aren't likely to have any junk mail yet, luckily, but maybe like a bill or 2 from where you had electricity or water or garbage or something switched over into your name. Correct,
unless you move like right now, and then you're going to have 7,000 political ads in your mailbox.
Oh, yes, true. Well, sure enough, Derek Broaddus, when he checked the mail, he had a couple of bills. But there was also a white envelope in there, and it was the size of like a small note card. And I'm sure he thought, oh, that's sweet. Like, this has to be from a neighbor welcoming us, to the neighborhood, because it had written on the outside in these like thick letters, to the new homeowner. And I'm sure Derek likely smiled because he thought, oh my gosh, how kind is this?
So that did happen to Anthony and I. The first week we were here, I went to check the mail and we had an envelope that said, welcome to your new home. And it was like the people that lived beside of us gave us like a $20 Lowe's gift card and like just welcomed us to like the neighborhood and just so introduced themselves and stuff. It was very nice.
Well, I'm glad yours ended nicely.
Oh, God.
Because I can imagine that Derek Broaddus' smile slowly faded, and his eyes probably grew wide with panic as he read the content of this typed letter. And it was typed in like that cursive font. And here's what it read. Quote, "Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It's now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. End quote.
No. Mm-mm.
Well,
no.
If you're already out, wait till you hear how it continues. So the letter then identified the Honda minivan that the Broadduses owned, as well as the renovations already taking place in the home.
Oh.
Quote, I see already that you have flooded 657 Boulevard with contractors so that you can destroy the house as it was supposed to be. Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bad move. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy.
Ooh, y'all, I have chills. Ooh.
Oh, you just wait. The writer also seemed to know that the Broaddus family had spoken with neighbors. Remember when they came by and they, spoke with the neighbors? And had seen their children. Because here is how the letter ended. Quote, you have children. I've seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I've counted. Are there more on the way? Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greed to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I'm in one. Look at all the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. And it was signed, The Watcher.
Listen, I'll be going into my wife and be like, don't even unpack those boxes. Like, this place is going back on the market. We're up out of here.
Right. This is 3 days after closing.
No.
And so, he's checking in at 10 o'clock at night. So I'm sure it being dark outside, it didn't make the content of the letter settle any easier.
No, I hate being outside after dark. I run.
Oh,
take garbage out, I run.
Right.
Check mail, I run.
I know. And Derek, he's alone now because the contractors had long since left for the day. And according to that Weideman article in The Cut, Derek, quote, raced around the house turning off lights so no one could see inside, and then called the Westfield Police Department, end quote. Which,
I would be turning on every single light because I would be scared somebody's hiding in the shadows.
That's true. And I guess I'm torn on that because if it's a new house that doesn't have blinds or curtains or anything like that up in it,
I would be freaking out.
I know. I don't know if I would turn all the lights off so I could hide or if I would turn them all on, but then anyone outside can see in and you can't see out.
That's true. Oh, God, it's like a Michael Myers movie.
I know. And I do feel like him running around and then calling the police department, that's exactly what any sane person would do.
Yes.
I would add crying because I would
100%.
be crying and praying.
Yeah, me too. 100%.
Those things. And when the officer arrived, Derek Broaddus showed the officer the letter, and the policeman then proceeded to ask if Derek had any enemies, which, again, obviously thinking the logical response, somebody dislikes Derek or the family enough that they're trying to scare them, and maybe trying to make it seem like they don't know much about the family. But, since this is a threatening letter.
Yeah, it's creepy.
It's not concrete threats, but it's like ominous.
It's almost like the house is making him. Like the letter came from the house.
Right. And I mean, that comment, I will call your children to me once
Yeah.
I know their names.
Sounds
I'm
like
out.
Pennywise.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. Well, later that night when Derek got back home to his wife that evening, because remember, they hadn't moved in yet because of the renovations, he told her about the letter. Understandably, while they kept their children in the dark about the letters, right? I think that's a good move. They were shaken. They decided to email the previous owners of 657 Boulevard, John and Andrea Woods, to see if they had ever received such a letter, right? Like, is this something new? Did you guys get these? Or do you know possibly who the watcher could be, right? Like, is there a neighbor who didn't want us to move in? Was there a disgruntled buyer who lost out on the property and maybe, you know, they're trying to scare us away? But those seem logical questions.
Yeah. So, side note, my cat just jumped over the baby gate in my house, and I just saw like a flash of gray and nearly peed my pants. Just so you guys know.
So, when they sent this email, I'm sure they were, I don't know what kind of response they were hoping to get. I don't know if it would make me feel better to know, like, okay, I'm not the only one who's gotten these letters, or no, this is just me.
Yeah.
But the next morning, they did receive an answer, and Andrea Woods told them that she, her husband, and her children had lived happily at 657 Boulevard for 23 years without incident. She did say, though, that merely a couple of days before moving out, they had received a letter that contained information in a similar fashion. So it was a letter where the writer said that his or her family had been watching the house for generations and thanked them for taking such good care of the house.
Okay.
But she noted that while she thought the note was odd, she wasn't threatened by it, and she had simply thrown it away and not thought anything else of it.
Okay.
The good news is that now that she became aware that the same writer had contacted the new owners and with comments that were much more menacing, Mrs. Woods actually went with Maria Broaddus to the police station to file a report.
That's nice.
That's good. Yeah. The two women spoke with Detective Leonard Lugo, and he made plans on how to proceed with the investigation. Most important was that neither family, the Woods or the Broadduses, make known to anyone else in the neighborhood about the letters because the neighbors are the primary suspects.
Right.
But when heavy signs that had been hammered into the front yard by the contractor were starting to be ripped out of the ground by the next day, even knowing that police were on the case did little to calm their fears and misgivings. When the Broaddus family was invited to a neighborhood get-together to welcome them and another family to the neighborhood, I'm sure those fears were on high alert. I mean, I can only imagine. I would be reading so far into every look, every comment being made, you know, and every time the three Broaddus children would wander too far away, like just out of eyeshot of Maria, she would, you know, yell for them to come back, like beckoning them to come back close to her because that's the only way she could protect them.
Yeah, I don't blame her for that. Like when I was younger and I would see people that had like their kids with those like backpacks that have like the leash things attached to them.
Yeah.
I was like, that's crazy. I would never do that to my kid. And then after we started doing this, I'm like, I'm going to super glue my kid to the side of me.
Right. You're going nowhere.
Yeah, you will go nowhere.
And I'm sure the kids, I mean, they were probably annoyed by it because kids are. They want to have their freedom. They don't want to have it taken away. They weren't able to like roam around and make friends and explore. But the Broaddus kids didn't know what was going on because...
Yeah, it's too scary.
Yeah, they couldn't tell them. You're absolutely right. That's far too terrifying to let them know. And in hindsight, Maria recalls continually yelling for her kids, and she noted, quote, "People must have thought we were crazy," end quote. But if they had only known why. And I see like other, you know, people in the neighborhood who aren't guilty, and they're like, man, why does this woman keep yelling at her kids when they're like
she's
10
a
feet away
helicopter
from her?
mom.
Right, exactly. She's taking it a bit too far. But at the barbecue welcoming party, Derek, meanwhile, was searching for clues, and he actually thought he might have solved the case himself. Derek was speaking with his neighbor from 2 doors down, who told him about a particular family in the neighborhood. The matriarch of the family was in her 90s, and she lived with several of her adult children who were all in their 60s. And while the neighbor told Derek that the family was, quote, harmless but odd, he specifically mentioned a son who the neighbor called a Boo Radley type.
Oh.
Implying, for those listeners out there who have not enjoyed reading To Kill a Mockingbird, that he was a recluse. He didn't like to be around people, usually only came out at night, and he was someone who, because of that invisibility, was often the scapegoat for fears and superstition. And in our world today, unfortunately, those who are not vocal or visible are often the scapegoats for problems and fears. And this gentleman, for Derek Broaddus, seemed the likely culprit.
Well, that's kind of sad. Just because you, he keeps to himself, you're going to automatically assume that's the dude that put the creepy letter in your mailbox. You've never even said hello to him.
Right. And I will say, though, to be fair, the theory seemed to fit. The family had been living there for decades, long enough for a grandfather and a father to have, quote, watched the house as well, like the letter mentioned.
Yeah.
It would have been someone who knew the Broadduses or knew the neighborhood, because the first letter that they received was postmarked on June 4th, and that was before the sale was public. So when the Woods sold their home, they didn't put a for sale sign up in the yard.
Oh.
And it was not public knowledge yet that the Broadduses had purchased the house.
Oh.
So it had to be somebody who knew the Broadduses, knew the Woods, or somebody who lived in this neighborhood and had heard.
So are we saying that the letter that the Woods received was postmarked June 4th, or the letter the Broaddus family got was June 4th?
No, the letter the Broaddus family got was June 4th.
Okay.
And at least that was some kind of a lead, right? Because then it narrows it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then for the next 2 weeks, nothing. And there had to have been some kind of relief, like thinking, okay, well, surely the police questioning people had scared whoever this was into stopping.
Yeah, or maybe it was like a prank or something like that.
Right. But then another letter came on June 18th, 2014. This time when Maria was visiting the new home to look at and choose between some paint samples and to check the mail. Again, there was a small white note card. Again, there was no return address. But this time, the Broadduses were named specifically, though their name was misspelled as Broaddus. So they'd obviously heard it, at least.
Yeah.
The content, though, Maggie, as hard as this is to believe, was even more terrifying than the previous one had been.
I'm getting ready to have nightmares tonight.
I know. Here is the content of the second letter. Quote, "Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I've been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what is in the walls yet?"
Oh.
Yes. "In time they will." End quote. Then the watcher named all 3 of their children from oldest to youngest by their nicknames, which were the names that Derek and Maria had called for them at the barbecue when they wandered too far away.
Oh, no.
The letter noted, quote, I am pleased to know your names now, and the names of the young blood you have brought to me. You certainly say their names often, end quote.
Okay. Creepy.
Yes. Then the Watcher noted seeing one of the three children painting. They had set up an easel in that enclosed side porch, and they had allowed her to sit out there and paint. The Watcher wrote, quote, "Is she the artist in the family?" Before continuing on back into his commentary linked to the house itself. Quote, 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It's been years and years since the young blood ruled the hallways of the house. Have you found all of the secrets it holds yet? Will the young blood play in the basement? Or are they too afraid to go down there alone? I would be very afraid if I were them. It's far away from the rest of the house. If you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Will they sleep in the attic? Or will you all sleep on the second floor? Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. It will help me to know who is in which bedroom. Then I can plan better. All of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow me to watch you and track you as you move through the house. Who am I? I'm the Watcher, and I've been in control of 657 Boulevard for the better part of 2 decades now. The Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to. I pass by many times a day. 657 Boulevard is my job, my life, my obsession. And now, you are too, Broaddus family. Welcome to the product of your greed. Greed is what brought the past 3 families to 657 Boulevard, and now it has brought you to me. Have a happy moving in day. You know I'll be watching. End
Holy crap.
Yeah. I'm telling you, when I read the basement,
yes,
you'll never hear them scream.
And the Woods family, were they young children when they lived there, or were they like teens?
No, they're older when the Woods move out, so they had to have been young when the Woods moved in because they lived there for like 23 years.
So maybe they just this Watcher just does not like this Broaddus family.
Oh, no. I mean, there is an awful lot of talk of like greed.
Yeah. I mean, it really sounds to me like a spirit. Like,
I know. Well, that's one theory, and we're going to talk. Well, I'll mention it briefly, but that is one theory. That, like, is it the house itself?
So it's creepy.
I know. And well, as you just said you would, and I would be too, Derek and Maria began to question if they should even move in.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been moving in.
And, I mean, this was supposed to be a town like Mayberry, a place where people look out for one another, where you could leave your doors unlocked. Well, there's no chance of that now.
Well, people apparently do watch out for each other, or they at least watch each other.
That's true. They're watching a little too closely.
Yeah.
After showing Detective Lugo the second letter, which mentioned their children by name, remember, as well as threats of not being able to hear them scream, combined with the fact that the side porch where the easel had been set up was hidden from the road by foliage, the parents began to feel that they should stop bringing their children to the new home, which is a step they did end up taking, right? Because I would too. I'd be like, well, my kids aren't coming with me the next time I come to this house.
Yeah.
And it made law enforcement believe that the writer must be a neighbor, like on the back side or the side where the side porch would be visible. Because remember, it's not visible from the road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's either that or someone is sneaking into their backyard and hiding, taking in all these details.
Okay, either way, creepy.
I know.
Scary.
Derek became even more convinced that the writer was the Boo Radley character mentioned at the barbecue, especially because this letter said that the watcher had been watching the house for the better part of 2 decades, right? Like he'd been responsible, or she had been responsible for the better part of 2 decades. And the patriarch of that family, the one that Derek is questioning, had passed away 12 years earlier.
Oh.
But Detective Lugo did question this gentleman, and his name is in a bunch of articles. But again, I don't like to name people if they're not named suspects. So Detective Lugo did question him, and according to the Broaddus family, they state that Detective Lugo told them that while the gentleman denied any knowledge of the letters, that there were things in his answers that matched some of the content. Now, whether that matching is just that he lost his father, over a decade ago, so it's the second decade.
Yeah, or he could have just heard like people talking about the new people in town and like knew they had 3 kids or whatever.
Right. And so I feel like he couldn't have said anything that was specifically linking him to the letters because Detective Lugo let him go, saying that there wasn't any hard evidence to prove he's the one who sent them.
Gotcha.
But Derek was enraged by that because, after all, his kids had been directly threatened. And, it's one thing to threaten adults, but to make veiled threats about children?
Yeah.
And after time passing again, they were told, the Broaddus family was, that, quote, probably nothing will come of it.
Oh, that's lovely.
I know. That made Derek furious. And Maggie, you and I both know we would not take probably as enough security that nothing is going to happen to our children.
No, definitely not. Mm-mm.
Absolutely not. But with Derek's anger came obsession. Like if the police aren't going to do anything about it, I will.
Oh, well, I would have cameras like in every inch of my house, and I would be able to see every inch of the outside of my house.
Yep. Well, what he did, he would stay the night in the home, hidden, crouching in the darkness, not sleeping, observing like the outside world in an attempt to catch the watcher in the act. He calculated and drew maps of when different neighbors had moved in or moved out. He drew circles on the map to indicate the distance from where someone could have seen the easel, and then circles of like earshot where they might have heard him or Maria call to the children. He called investigators to run background checks on people in the neighborhood. He hired other people to keep watch. And this house had taken its hold on Derek.
Yeah, it's like, this is really just kind of creeping me out. This is supernatural for sure. Carry on.
Because it is like this house is like holding him in this fear-stricken state, like paralyzed with his inability to make the danger stop. Derek even hired a former FBI agent to analyze the letters. And there were some indications, and this might make you think even more the supernatural. There were some indications that the person who had written them was older. For example, each letter would indicate the weather, like, quote, cool for a summer day. And maybe when I was in college, my grandma would write me letters sometimes, and she would always include details like that. Like she would say, it's nice and warm outside for November, and she'd
that is like an older generation thing.
Mm-hmm. And the letter was addressed to M/M Broaddus. Now, obviously, they're the Broaddus family, but that M/M instead of Mr. and Mrs. I had never seen that salutation, and so I didn't know if it was something that was like concentrated in one region of the U.S. or if it was more of an international salutation or one that older people might use. I'd never seen it before, but this FBI agent said that indicated an older writer.
Oh.
Yeah. And I couldn't find any information about its roots. But the other indication of an older writer was 2 spaces after a period.
Oh, no, we don't do that anymore.
Right. And other than like if you're writing in APA format, which is the only reason that I could think of that you would do it, you don't, like you said, Maggie, you don't use two spaces. And so the FBI was thinking, well, that dates back to when people would type on typewriters. Mm-hmm. You would add two spaces. That was the standard. And when I was searching for more information about the two spaces, there was even an article that was titled, quote, "Nothing says over 40 like two spaces after a period." And I was like, okay, then.
Gotcha. Noted.
Yeah. And the FBI agent also noted the lack of profanity that was contrasted with the hatred that was seething through the letters. And to me, I mean, I guess I get why that made them think older.
Right.
But I don't know if for me that necessarily indicates an older person. More so for me, and okay, I realize that what I'm about to say is definitely generalized and stereotypical. But it makes me think the writer, in my eyes, is more likely female.
Well, it made me also probably stereotypical, but like it made me think of somebody who is like kind of innocent and wouldn't have that type of vocabulary.
Right.
I mean, not innocent like not guilty, but innocent like not mature.
Naive, yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess my biggest question is, who is the anger directed toward? Like, is it the Broaddus family specifically and who they are? Because they are like new money versus old money. Or is the anger rooted more in just wealth itself, where they keep talking about greed? So I don't know if they're angry about wealth or they're angry like it's directed towards the family. Because one of the letters also stated, quote, "The house is crying from all the pain it is going through. You have changed it and made it so fancy. You're stealing its history. It cries for the past and what it used to be in the time when I roamed its halls. The 1960s were a good time for 657 Boulevard when I ran from room to room, imagining the life with the rich occupants there. The house was full of life and young blood. Then it got old, and so did my father. But he kept watching until the day he died. And now I watch and wait for the day when the young blood will be mine again." End quote.
Okay, like I'm getting like a very like Mr. Gatsby feel about this house for some reason. Like, I don't know, like this is just like something that I feel like we should be reading this in his like English class with our kids. This story,
like fiction. It sounds like we're reading fiction, like this scary short story, and just in time for Halloween.
Yeah,
and I'm with you. Like some of the comments in that part, it does almost make it sound like it is the house. Like it cries for the past and what it used to be when I roamed its halls.
Yeah, and the 1960s were a good time. Like, okay, I don't know. It's just weird. This is strange.
And now I wait for the day when the young blood will be mine again.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
It's like this person or thing is like, that makes me think it's almost always kind of been there.
Yeah.
It's creepy.
The neighborhood gentleman that I mentioned earlier, he was brought in for questioning again. But he and his family insisted that he was innocent. Derek and Maria, even in conjunction with the police, sent a fake letter to the family in question that contained bogus claims that they were going to tear down the house entirely, thinking that, okay, well, if this guy is the watcher, this would probably prompt another response from him, right? With this, and maybe it would mention information that was contained in that letter, and then we know it's them. But nothing came. And there were other suspects. Remember, I told you that Derek hired some investigators and things like that, and they found a couple sex offenders were discovered in the area. There were also neighbors who kept their lawn furniture a bit too close to the Broaddus fence. And what they thought was weird about it is that the lawn furniture was actually facing the Broaddus house and not their own home. So basically anything out of the ordinary became like fodder for nightmares. And trust me, the Broadduses had nightmares. They had alarm systems put in, just like you suggested, Maggie, in case the writer of these letters decided to become more bold and enter the home. According to the Weideman article, the most comprehensive source of information on this case, and from whom most of my information has come, in addition to some court paperwork that I'll get to in a minute, said that Derek began searching for, and this seems crazy, but I totally get it, military veterans to just work out in the backyard as a deterrent. And he even called for a priest to bless the house.
There you go.
Yep. In case the threat were otherworldly. And, one that wouldn't be scared off by alarms and strong men. Just as large and looming as the physical threat, though, were the threats imposed by their own thoughts left unchecked. Would they ever be safe? Could they even leave their children alone in their bedrooms? Would they let their children have friends over?
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
Would they constantly have to keep the shades drawn and the lights out so no one could see in? Would they feel comfortable letting their children play outside? Could the children ever visit a neighborhood friend? Like, where would the danger stop? Who could they trust? I mean, this is enough to drive you literally insane.
Like, I'm telling you, I just really don't think I would have been able to move in.
I know. The problem, Maggie, at this point is that Derek and Maria had already sold their old home, and they were actually living with Maria's parents while the final renovations were being made, and they were already paying the mortgage and other bills on this new house on Boulevard. But then they started questioning, like, is that worth it? The financial toll and the psychological one? I mean, the psychological one, I'd say no, nothing is worth that. Then the third letter arrived on July 18th, 2014, more erratic still. It said, quote, 657 Boulevard is turning on me. It is coming after me. I don't understand why. What spell did you cast on it? It used to be my friend, and now it's my enemy. I am in charge of 657 Boulevard. It is not in charge of me. I will fend off its bad things and wait for it to become good again. It will not punish me. I will rise again. I will be patient and wait for this to pass and for you to bring the young blood back to me. 657 Boulevard needs young blood. It needs you. Come back. Let the young blood play again like I once did. Let the young blood sleep in 657 Boulevard. Stop changing it and let it alone. End quote.
So this to me is just super creepy. It's like the house is like, I don't know, it's like whoever wrote it is like kind of changing, and like it sounds like the house is like now kind of after the person that's writing the letter, and the letter's like, or the letter writer is like, no, the house is changing. It's my enemy now. It's just weird. It's like they're like a ghost or something that's lived there. I don't know. It's just creeping me out.
And they're like good ghosts and bad ghosts both living in it, and they're at war with one another.
Yeah.
But then what's weird is I see the writer as bad, but then they're saying I fend off its bad things. I don't know. It's weird. And then like it needs to, like it keeps taking the young blood.
No, see, I think, I don't know. It's weird.
Like the children are its food.
Yeah, that's the part that creeps me out the most. It keeps referring to like young blood. Yeah, gross.
I know. Well, Maggie, you can imagine that was it. I mean, they said the home has to go. It has to be sold. They decided that the safety of the family had to be made a priority over this dream home.
Yeah.
And 6 months after Derek and Maria made the purchase, before they'd even moved in, the home at 657 Boulevard was back on the market.
I don't blame them. I don't judge them. I would do the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. Initially, and quite hopefully, they listed the home for more than what they had paid because, after all, they had done nearly $100,000 worth of renovations. But Even then, the Broadduses were not dishonest. They made a partial disclosure about the letters to those interested in the home, and they promised the full letters would be fully disclosed before any offer was accepted, because they didn't want other people to be taken aback like they were.
Yeah, I feel like that's only fair. And like when you buy a house or you sell a house, like I know we had to go through like anything that was wrong with the house. We had to list it, how we repaired it, and like all that stuff. So, I mean, I feel like that's a good thing to do on their end, just to kind of cover your behind.
Right. And Maggie, let me ask you, if you had seen these letters, would you move in?
Oh, no way. No. No way.
No. And no one did. There were a couple of offers that were far below the asking price, too far to be taken seriously. And then no response. Nothing close to what they needed to even break even. And eventually they even lowered the price, and there was still no interest. And when the house didn't sell after a whole year on the market, a whole year being empty, yet the Broaddus family paying the mortgage and the taxes, they decided that they needed to get a little bit more aggressive. They weren't able to sell the home with buyers being forewarned of the Watcher, and that's when they realized that they too wouldn't have purchased the home if they had known. And since we already established that the Woods family had also received a letter from the unnamed Watcher and had chosen not to disclose that information before the closing on the home, Derek and Maria Broaddus decided to sue John and Andrea Woods.
I mean, I really don't blame them. Like we just said, neither one of us would have bought the house if we had known about any type of creepy Watcher person thing, involving the house.
Person thing, yeah. And all of this was based on the court documents from the Superior Court of New Jersey, Union County, and the claims that the Broaddus family's lawyer made against the Wood family is that they would have known of the Watcher's, quote, nefarious intentions, that the letter received was knowingly concealed in order to procure the sale at the asking price, and they even cited lines in the letters that seemed to implicate the Woods family. Things like, quote, I asked the Woods to bring me young blood, end quote, and, quote, the Woods family turned it over to you. It was their time to move on and kindly sold it when I asked them to, end quote. So the Broaddus family asked for a refund of the entire purchase price with interest.
Wow.
Like, that does seem, I don't know, to say they sold it when I asked them to.
Yeah, it does seem kind of like these people, like this person was working like in cohort with the Woods family. It's just weird to me.
Right, and then you just
case.
Think, but why? And that's the part that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, like what would they have to gain?
Right. As soon as the lawsuit became public, so did the knowledge of the Watcher's letters. Their story was picked up by major news stations, and Derek and Maria were forced to tell their children about the horrors associated with that home, because otherwise they would hear it everywhere else. Despite all of their work of now being the center of stories of their children knowing the truth, the lawsuit was dismissed, and the Broaddus family was stuck with the bills.
Wow.
They tried again to put the home on the market in 2016. They compared even, and I thought this was smart, they compared the handwriting of every single person interested in viewing the home with the handwriting on the envelopes. But there was never a match, just as there was never a prospective buyer still interested after reading the letters.
That's because the letters were written by a spirit.
And they're creepy.
Yeah.
So the Broaddus family decided to try a different tactic. They decided to raze the home completely. So like tear it all down and build on that property 2 separate structures to divide up the land, right? If it is the house, like if the house has a spirit
Haunted.
in it. Yeah, let's try to get rid of it. But putting 2 structures on that property would have to get approval, though, because each property would then be roughly 2.5 feet shy of the mandated 70-foot lot size. So, I mean, they're close. But they were unanimously denied, despite the fact that another family down the street had been approved for a similar request on lots that would fall even shorter of the mandate than the proposal made by the Broaddus family.
What is this nonsense?
I know, it's like everybody's conspiring against them. And it makes you wonder, though, was the house in some way like ensuring its own haunting legacy?
You know, I just can't get over the fact that these people are paying a mortgage for a $1.3 million home that they can't live in. Like, I can't imagine.
I can't afford that anyway, let alone paying that and having to find someplace else to live.
Yeah, exactly.
And after that unanimous vote, Maria Broaddus responded in an interview with Reeves Widerman, quote, "This is my town. I grew up here. I came back. I chose to raise my kids here. You know what we've been through. You had the ability 2.5 years into a nightmare to make it a little better. And you've decided that this house is more important than we are. That's really how it felt," end quote.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. I would feel like if that happened to me in the town I grew up in, I would be like, okay, forget you all then, because I see how important my life and my family's life is to you all.
Right, over a house?
Yeah. Could they not have just tore it down and built like one big house there?
I guess they could. I don't know why unless they were thinking if it's built on this, like the exact same spot.
Oh, yeah,
if people worry the same. And maybe the people of the town did decide that the house was more important, or maybe they knew of the very real danger that was lingering in the walls of that house and they didn't want to make it angry.
That's true, especially if like the people that live there have lived there, like, you know, even some of them generations, they would know like the stories of the house.
Right. And despite bad news at every turn, it seems, the Broaddus family did find someone with grown children who was willing to rent the home.
Okay.
While they continued to try and sell it. And they even told the renter that if the letters pick back up again, that the renter could break the lease at any time.
Oh, that's nice.
Right. 2 weeks after the renter moved in and 2.5 years after the first letter, the renter handed Derek something that came in the mail. A white note card envelope.
Oh, God.
This final letter, dated February 13th, read this, quote, "Violent winds and bitter cold. To the vile and spiteful Derek and his wench of a wife, Maria. You wonder who the watcher is? Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me, one of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the watcher could be. Or maybe you do know, and you're too scared to tell anyone. Good move. I walked by the news trucks when they took over my neighborhood and mocked me. I watched as you watched from the dark house in an attempt to find me. Telescopes and binoculars are wonderful inventions. 657 Boulevard survived your attempted assault and stood strong with its army of supporters barricading its gates. My soldiers of the boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher." End quote.
Yo, like, I cannot. That gave me full body chills when you read that. I'm telling you, this is like, I'm certain this is like a spirit in this house, and these people that helped, or these are spirits of other houses in this historic strip of like a road or whatever that are helping protect this house. I'm telling you that this is crazy.
I know. And then to end this final letter, it shifted to potential forms of revenge that the Watcher might take. Quote, maybe a car accident, maybe a fire, maybe something as simple as a mild illness that never seems to go away, but makes you feel sick day after day after day after day after day. Maybe the mysterious death of a pet. Loved ones suddenly die. Planes and cars and bicycles crash. Bones break. You are despised by the house. And the Watcher won.
Well, now we know who's responsible for COVID. It was the Watcher.
Yep. That was it. Day after day after day.
Yeah.
Since renovations halted and the sounds of jackhammers were silenced, indeed, the Watcher, the house, the fear did win.
So, is this family, are they okay?
Yes, from what I have read, but they are not in the news much, and I probably wouldn't want to either, because I would be afraid if it is a person that they're going to find out where I am now and they're going to come there.
Yeah, exactly. No, I would probably be in the witness protection program.
Yeah, I wouldn't want anybody to know where I
Well,
was.
at least they're alive.
Yes.
That's a happy ending.
That is. 657 Boulevard did finally sell in August 2019 to a couple who want to remain anonymous. We don't know if the letters continued, but the legend definitely has. Some speculate that the gentleman in the neighborhood did send the letters, but there's no concrete proof that he had done so. Besides, when some DNA evidence on one of the note cards was analyzed, it belonged to a woman. Maria Broaddus was no match. What woman could it be? Or was the DNA there to throw off the investigation? Others believe the Broadduses themselves planted the notes, that they figured out too late that they couldn't afford the home and they were looking for a way to get out of the contract. But with the nearly $400,000 loss the Broadduses finally took on the home, I find that theory hard to believe. Negative publicity in this case is not good publicity. Still, others wonder if there were an evil presence within the home. Is that why, quote, all of the windows and doors in 657 Boulevard allow this entity to, quote, watch and track as they, quote, move through the house? Could it be a spirit making reality into a nightmare? We will never know. What we do know from this situation is the palpable nature of fear and its power to control our actions. When the darkness, the one appealing to us all the time to peek, to know, to see, to avenge, doesn't stay buried, it can make a prisoner of us, as it did the Broaddus family. I guess we know what happens when the alligators Stephen King spoke of don't get fed. They won't starve. They'll just feed on our mental health, our sense of comfort from the inside. When the darkness beckons, how will you respond?
Again, please like and join our Facebook page, Coffee and Cases Podcast, to continue the conversation and see images related to this episode. As always, follow us on Twitter at Cases Coffee, on Instagram at Coffee Cases Podcast, or you can always email us suggestions to coffeeandcasespodcast@gmail.com. Please tell your friends about our podcast so more people can be reached to possibly help bring some closure to these families. Don't forget to rate our show and leave us a comment as well. We hope to hear from you soon.
Stay together.
Stay safe.
We'll see you next week.